Okay, everybody, welcome to Code Akron Q&A. I'm Kevin Lockett. Today, my guest is Raymond Brown, Raymond S. Brown III. He's a front-end developer for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he's been doing that for the past 2 years. So we're going to talk tech, NBA, and Ray's beginning as a tech guy and his future as a tech person. So how you doing, Ray?
Cool, I'm cool. How are you?
I'm good. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed in you. I came downstairs, I walked you in, and there was no NBA trophy.
I mean, man, I can't just take it everywhere. You know what? I've only seen it once live, to be honest with you.
Where'd you see it?
They after the finals, we had a kind of like a post-game celebration, kind of for the team, for the employees and team and everything. And while we were there, Griffin, the GM, he shows up and like. First, they pass the mic to everybody. He goes, "I told you so," and he just sat the trophy down and left.
Oh, wow.
And we all went and started taking pictures of it with it. I guess we're gonna have another round coming up soon where they do friends and family. You know, so you bring your family, take a picture with the trophy. You know, so.
All right. So you are in front-end development.
Yeah.
Okay. So for people who don't understand front-end development and back-end development, what's the difference between front-end and back-end?
So when you go to your websites or whatever the case, and let's say you go to a website and you're gonna buy a T-shirt or buy any item, the structure of that website, the process of collecting your information, all of that is usually built by the front end. So that's all front end stuff. Now, once that information is collected and sent to the database or wherever it gets processed or things of that nature, that's all back end stuff. So basically, for the simplest way I can put it for us is, your front end guys make it look pretty, make it function for the average user, and then the back end guys take all that stuff and get down and dirty with it, make it work.
So the first time we met, you were working at Cleveland.com.
Yeah.
And I was always enthralled with you guys because I was an intern manning the front desk, which was crazy. I shouldn't have been at the front desk.
Right.
But the editorial people were in the back, but all of you were upstairs doing HTML and all that stuff. So were you into front-end development back then, or was it just totally HTML and all that stuff?
It was definitely front-end, but it's a much different experience working for the website of a newspaper versus actually being in sports or anything of that nature. I mean, first and foremost, the finances that are being worked with for an NBA team, their pockets are so deep that all the newest technology, all the latest, if you can think of it, or if someone has a new product out, we're usually getting it first, especially with the Cleveland Cavaliers, because right now, the center of the basketball universe, as they say. Whereas with the newspaper, you do a lot of coding as far as HTML and things of that nature, but a lot of my duties then were more based in design, so It was a lot more graphic heavy. Right now, I still do a pretty significant amount of graphic projects, but I'm writing a lot more code, a lot more JavaScript, jQuery, just a lot more. It's a lot more involved right now. The stuff I did at Cleveland.com definitely gave me a good, a very strong base. But it's just like, this is that on steroids.
Right.
It's the best way I can describe it.
And you were self-taught, because I think I asked you a long time ago. I was like, how do you guys learn this stuff? I said, well, I got this book I learned. And my mind just didn't work that way. Yeah. But you were self-taught. You kind of taught yourself how to do it.
Yeah, so Cleveland.com, I worked there for a long time, a number of years, but the way that I got that job, because I could always draw, I could always freehand illustrate, I always was very competent when it came to messing with computers, because I've been messing with them since I was a kid. A internship opened up online, and I just happened to be surfing, and I was working at a pre-production studio at the time. I was doing music engineering and design and graphics and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so my friend Kirsten, who used to come down there, he was more of the tech guru, so to speak. So when we ever had tech questions, we would ask him. He looked at my artwork, and we've been friends since I was in 7th grade, about 8th grade. Anyway, he said, you really should get into web design because the internet is taking off and blah, 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 I looked into it. I looked online, and because I was in Cleveland, I just typed in Cleveland, and Cleveland.com had been around for a year or two or something like that, and they were hiring an intern, looking for a couple of interns. I sent in a resume. Eliza Wing, who was the president at the time, she asked me to do some mock-up graphics just so she could see after she looked at my portfolio.
Right.
I turned them in, and boom, I was in.
So you got hired in as a graphics guy?
I actually got hired in as a intern web designer.
Oh wow, okay.
So I was mostly doing running site ads, banner ads, things of that nature. At the time, e-cards was taking off, so I was doing a lot of e-cards, and which was perfect because I had just finished a stint at American Greetings. I did a freelance month there, as a independent contractor, I guess. So when I got over here and I did the e-cards that she asked me to do, it became, well, can you do this? Can you do this? And for me, it was like, hey, what is it that you need? She'd tell me, I go, I could do it. And then I would go in the back and I would be searching, trying to figure out what it is she actually asked me for. Yeah. And then I would just make it, and it looked good. For me, it was always, if it looks good to me, then it probably looks good to somebody else. And if it looks good to somebody else, then it should do what it does.
And the interesting thing about the Cavs gig is that you were pretty comfortable at Cleveland.com. Yeah. But I don't think you were looking to leave.
Well, so Cleveland.com had merged with the Plain Dealer, former Northeast Ohio Media Group. I had gotten an offer there to stay on as senior creative consultant. So I would have been doing pretty much the same thing. I was over a team of developers and designers, and it was a pay increase since they merged. So I started working there. I stayed there for about 6 to 8 months, I think it was. During that time, there were a number of people who left for a multitude of reasons. When they first merged, there was a huge layoff and a let go of a lot of people. Then while we were there, a lot of people just started to fall by the wayside for a number of reasons. When it came to, I ended up leaving there for a number of reasons, mostly because I just didn't agree with a lot of the direction that they were taking, especially with my department and my team. So I left. A few months after I left, they pretty much disbanded. Right. All of the designers they let go. The people who were over our department got let go, and a lot of the people who I would have been over had gotten let go. As they were telling me I was touted to be over that department, that would have been shrunk down, but I just had a really, we just could not come to an agreement, so I left. It was kind of like you could see the writing on the wall, So I left, and I've been doing freelance and independent contracting for a long time. So when I left, I got a studio that I used to do music in. Now I paint and still take projects. So I started to just focus on developing my own thing, and suddenly I got a phone call from an old friend who works over at the Cavaliers, and he goes, I need somebody with what you know. Are you working somewhere? And I'm like, well, no, I'm doing my own thing. He goes, man, maybe you want to come in for an interview. We can talk, man. I really need you. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of happy where I'm at, He goes, just come and talk to me, So we talked for a day. I won't lie. I walked in the building, and since I was born and raised in Cleveland, you walk in and Mark Price, Larry Nance, and all you people on the wall, and it's almost like the nostalgia of being there just was almost overwhelming. Then, he talks. He says, well, let me throw some numbers at you, and let you talk to you about what you get, and one thing kind of fit, and so I took the job, and then I literally told him, I said, okay, I'll try it, and then the very next day, I'm sitting at my studio. I just told my mom I took the job. She's all happy. I'm watching TV, and all of a sudden, breaking news, LeBron James announces that he's coming back to the Cavaliers, and I'm like, yes! That was right on time. Yeah. It's been like that ever since.
So what's a day like for you? I mean, it's always different, but when the season's in play, I mean, how long are you there? What's your duties during the day? Does it spill over the night? Do you stay for the whole game, and how does that work?
So we covered 3 properties. Well, we actually covered 4 properties, but only 3 in-house. That's the Cavaliers, Canton Charge, which is like the JV Cavaliers, the Lake Erie Monsters, which will now be Cleveland Monsters coming up, and the Cleveland Gladiators. So normally when I get to work, I usually work, typically it's an 8-hour day. We get there, we have to, we do a team powwow every Tuesday and Thursday morning, kind of look at the landscape of what we all got to do, what's needed, what needs to be built, what needs to be done, and then we start from there. Now, if it's a game night, it's a little different because we got a lot of different things that we have that make that night go properly. Like we've got something called the social zone where we stream basically Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I guess it's just Instagram and Twitter right now. We pull that content into a wall, and that wall is like a mosaic. So anything that shows up, hashtag Cavs or whatever the case, will show up, and and underneath is like might be a picture of LeBron or something like that. Well, if you walk up and you touch your post, it brings it to the forefront, So we have to monitor that. We have to maintain the corner boards and the end game because we have ads and we have information being pumped out there. So we have to manage that. We also do a lot of, this year we did a lot of 360 VR. So I had to actually, myself and mostly a guy named Matt Haltuch, we would set our camera in different places and film it so that people can go to the app and kind of just feel like they're actually in game. So we do a lot of those kind of things. And then for me, it kind of depends. Last year I had to design the emoji, so I spent a large portion of the summer drawing all the different players as characters. And then we had different nights where we had like a Hardwood Classics night for Austin Carr. We had the Chinese New Year, so I ended up drawing characters. I wasn't officially hired as an illustrator, but
it's interesting how that still comes into play, the illustration background.
And the thing is, apparently, I feel like I'm pretty good, but they like me a lot more than even I expected. Right. So, you draw one, they're like, can you do something else? So for me, it was like, I love the experience.
Yeah. So what was it like? Because you went to the championship game last year when you went to Oakland, and you went to Oakland, San Francisco. So what's it like being a tech graphics guy from Cleveland, and now you're going to almost like the mecca of almost like that area of California was like a lot of tech. What's the major difference that you've seen between the two, and what did you pick up on?
From a basketball standpoint or from personal?
From a personal, like, tech standpoint.
Well, it's kind of hard to say because we didn't go up there with a focus on work, but what we did do is go up there and kind of look at how their day-to-day operations were in comparison to ours. And the thing about it is, not to speak negatively or down on their experience, but it's like the Dan Gilbert process there is really focused on making sure that the audience and the fan has the most amazing experience of their life. For instance, during a game, if you're let's say you sit at your seat and your cup holder's broken, you can tweet to the right person and they'll come and bring you a free drink because you had to go through that and fix your cup holder right in front of you. Right. Or if we've had instances where people had unruly fans and things that happened, and they were moved up to a much better seat. Those kind of things. If you're from, let's say you show up in a all Warriors outfit, but you go into the team shop at the Cavaliers, they're going to greet you and they're going to be as nice and courteous to you as we would to anybody else. When we got to Oakland, it was a very different experience than that. Like I said, I'm not here to down talk to or anything, but it was a very different experience.
It was like a Raider Nation type of.
Well, it was kind of like, what are you doing in here? Those kinds of things, it is what it is, and we definitely, don't get me wrong, our fans. The Cleveland fans really, really support the team or whatever. Oakland fans, and the Golden State fans, they really support their team, and they're very vocal about it, Yeah. But like last year when we went, We had about 4 of like the biggest dudes I ever seen in my life sitting behind us with sunglasses on. We were dark, so I'm like, "What do you got sunglasses on?" And I mean, we were, obviously since we were from Cleveland, we were kind of heckling, and they were heckling us hard. But at the end of the game, it was like all friendly, So I think it kind of depends on the circumstance and situation. But it was really good there. Now the good thing was we did get to see how their social zone was built and things like that. And it's funny because we're kind of in line with each other across. I believe, from what I've seen, I think across the entire NBA, the tech departments are very much in line with each other. We do have a lot of weekly phone calls and discussions and things like that to see what we all can and can't do because we're all on the same platform.
Right.
So but it's pretty cool.
Let's go back to Dan Gilbert for a second. Like he's heavily invested in technology, especially in Detroit.
Yeah.
But like you said, you get like toys, like you get like new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So what's one of some of the newest things that you've gotten so far that you've got to play with?
Well, the 360 VR camera for one is amazing in itself. It's
So what's it, for people who don't know, what's a VR?
Oh, so it's supposedly it's virtual reality. So what we actually do is we have either 6. We got a rig for 6 and we got a rig for 10 cameras. And basically this rig holds 6 to 10 GoPro high def cameras, all at different angles. Mm-hmm. When we hit the button, it starts, and all of them record at the same time. Once it's done, we take those 6 or 10 different video shots. We pull it into a program. It stitches them together and basically outputs it as if you were in, say, a globe, and it's kind of pasted over. So if you could imagine when you look left or right as you're looking with your phone or with your VR camera glasses,
right,
you feel like you're actually at the game, or you're at whatever the event is. So we shoot a lot of that kind of stuff. We've been dealing with a company called Listener, and Listener focuses on inaudible tones. Mm-hmm. So as a human, you can only hear up to a certain level. Animals hear to a higher level. They actually kick out tones apparently higher than that don't affect humans or animals, but they talk to applications and devices. So if you've got the application on your phone and hypothetically speaking, a commercial comes on, it could trigger your phone to kick on a coupon or kick on whatever. So if you could imagine if you're in the arena and on the screen they go, "Let's go Cavs," right, say it with us. Your phone might say it with us, "Let's go Cavs," and wow, but you wouldn't hear it trigger right, that. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. Whatever new technologies people are coming out with, they kind of give us a good opportunity to work with it, see if it benefits us, and we kind of go from there.
So how do you stay on top of just learning all this, especially being a front-end developer? I mean, sometimes if you're an HR person, you go take training seminars and that type of deal. Like as a front-end developer, what type of things do you do to keep on educating yourself?
Well, I think I'm a lot more nerdy. I recognize that now than I
You are nerdy, man. It don't matter how cool you are.
I'm super cool.
You're super cool.
Super cool, But I mean, if you drop me in a room full of nerds, nobody would assume that I was a nerd. They're like, "What is he doing here?"
There's a security's here. Why security?
I mean, it is what it is. But I do find that in between projects, when I'm sitting at the office or whatever the case, I find myself doing a lot of surfing. I'm not just on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm actually looking at some of the new things that'll come out. And the thing about it is you'll find a link that'll take you someplace where you're learning about something, and in reading through that page or just researching it, you'll stumble across 3 or 4 other things that you didn't even know existed. Or you might stumble across a piece of technology, and as you're reading about it, it'll say they utilize A, B, and C to build it, or this will take the place of this, or it rivals that. And for me, I'm like, well, what is it rivaling? Because I want to see, what its competition is. If it's something that's getting publicity or it's getting recognition, and they tell me that it's competing with something else, I want to see who it's competing with. So you look at both of those things, and as you kind of start to drill down, you're going to, learn a lot more about how it works and why it works. And for me, it becomes an application thing. I mean, you can, it sounds funny, but a shoe is a shoe. But when you don't have a hammer and you need to put a nail in something, you apply your need to that shoe. Well, when I'm looking at those applications and I'm seeing what technology was used to build them, then I'm seeing, oh, I can use that same technology over here, or I can write, I can use a JavaScript like this to do this. So it's just application for me. I mean, you can get to it's like taking a map. You can take 3 or 4 different streets, but you can get to the same place using them all. Well, for me, I want to know what all the streets are. I want Google Maps. So I try and figure out how things get, to the end point, and I work backwards.
So let's go to the championship game for a second. So the clock winds down. LeBron is crying.
Yeah.
Kevin Love is looking for someone to hug.
Yeah.
But you're still working.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how does that work? So everybody's celebrating, champagne's popping,
Well,
but your department still has to do their job. So how does that work?
Don't get me wrong. I mean, we definitely had our we partied, but we're all still. It sounds so funny because I feel so cliche saying this, but we actually have bought into the fact that. The game is the game, but the ultimate thing is to make sure that the people who are watching what we do get a chance to experience it, even if they're not there.
Right.
That 360 VR thing is huge because you get to feel like you're in the environment. Well, don't get me wrong. He grabs the ball, falls to the ground. Everybody's cheering. We're up here elated, but we know that. People are out there waiting for championship graphics. People are out there waiting for stats. People are out there who want to hear what he has to say. And, we've got fans who are in China as well as Atlanta and wherever. Those people can't be here, and watching the broadcast on television is great, but there's additional content that you would want to see that you can't get on television.
Right.
And that's where digital kind of comes in. We kind of bridge the gap between what mainstream is just giving you and what more you want to see. So we try and make sure that first we try and figure out how to get you what you don't normally see. We try and make sure that you get it. The last thing we want is everybody to be cheering and somebody's at home and they can't get that content.
Right.
So you just do it.
And you mentioned before we started, you were talking how you used the VR and you were behind Coach Lou. Yes, because you really don't interact with the players or the coaches that much. So
not much. It's interesting because they're out there. They practice mostly in Berea, whereas we're in downtown Cleveland. But they play the games in downtown Cleveland. Well, our social team gets to go out a lot, but our digital team spends a lot more time working on the infrastructure, as far as the website, as far as creating content for social to get up. We stay really focused on that. So, when we did the parade and we were on stage and, the coaches are in front of me and LeBron's right there and Kyrie's right there, it's kind of, it was a little bit, I don't want to say surreal because, again, it sounds so cliche, but it was a very, you know that feeling you get when you get deja vu?
Yeah.
When I looked up and I saw all of them, it hit my stomach funny for a second, but then it was what was more jarring than them was looking out and seeing a sea of people. I mean, I have pictures where I had to do a panoramic shot just to get this large group of people in the camera, but if I had panned that way, it was, I've never seen as many people in my life, so it's just interesting.
You said, like, when it was the championship night, you said it was like the quarry scene from The Walking Dead, where it was just people just coming down the street, just almost like a stunned look in their eyes, just kind of just walking down the street.
Because I'm on the 6th floor.
Yeah.
So when we finished work, first off, when they announced that we won and the game was over, we were all cheering and all this. So we finished the graphic. We had people going there like, oh my God, you gotta come look at this. And when you look out the window, it was just literally a sea of people in front of the building, all around all the streets. And people were I've never seen this many people this happy and cheering in my whole life until 2 or 3 days later. And it was just even crazier. So it was a lot of people, man. Cleveland really, for me, it felt like the Cleveland fans and the people in Cleveland, they really held it together better than I expected.
Yeah.
That's not to talk bad on the city, but usually when you get a lot of people together, and it's been kind of crazy over the last couple of months, but it was a really good, really calm, and really festive.
I think
time.
people were just stunned.
Yeah. I mean, it was very stunning. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to people who are interested in web development? Because especially you've seen a lot over the years, but what advice would you give them if they're interested in getting into that field?
Well, I think that development is always, as long as I've been doing this, it's always changing and evolving. There's always so many things that are coming out, or that's one step better than the last thing, or whatever they were using. So many people have done things with it that now they've packaged it and it's a lot easier to work with, and then something new comes about that goes beyond that. I think, realistically speaking, you should always realize that if you make something great, you can always make it greater. So just make great stuff. For me, every time I would, when I first got in the building, I remember the first website I built, I sent it to this guy, and I'm like, what do you think? And he goes, I think you need to go back to the drawing board, because nobody's going to wait 5 minutes for your website to load, And I'm like, but he was like, it looks good, though, you know?
Yeah.
So from that point, it became, okay, how do I make it faster? So for me, it becomes identifying how to make it better, and then just zeroing in on that, because you're going to learn so many other things as you figure out how to resolve this, that you can apply the new things you learn to different parts of whatever it is you're building to make it better. So for me, I just kept trying to make everything I did better than the last time, and it benefited me because the people who I would run into, from going after different jobs to people looking for a developer from a freelance perspective, they would always see my work they would see my work, they would see how timely and efficiently I would do it, and it would become, well, how do I get you to do my thing like that? I mean, because realistically speaking, everybody wants their product to be better too.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're doing better than you did last time, and last time you killed it, there's always going to be opportunities. And the other thing is, it took me a long time to really understand what patience is, but once you actually really attain that level of peace and patience, you really do see a difference in the way things go. I see a lot of high-strung people, and I mean, everybody has stresses, but at some point you kind of look and you go, I could really get upset or stressed over this, but why should I? And just that will make everything relax. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like those people, my mom used to always say people speed on the highway to get, to save 1 minute.
Right.
If you're only going to save 1 minute, but you get all stressed out, you might as well have just taken your time. So for me, I'm going to get there. You know what I mean? Just take your time. And the more relaxed I've been, the more success I've seen.
See, that's why I could never be a web developer. Because when I was trying to learn HTML, I didn't have the patience.
Well,
it's like, what? I could not wrap my head, because you got to have a certain mind to kind of understand that.
But you know what? You also have to, I think, again, I believe everything is relatable. There have been so many times when I've written code and it didn't work. And at some point you feel like you're going to rip out the little follicles of hair that I keep on my head, which I don't know how I do that. But when I relax, I might even have to leave it for a day. Come back the next day early in the morning when I'm just relaxed and go, oh, wait a minute. And it works, and then for me, it used to be a point where I would beat myself up. Like, I can't believe you're so stupid. Why didn't you get that? Now I've gotten to a point where it's, if you had gotten as relaxed as you were now, you would have probably figured that out. So now I'm finding that I'm reaching these solutions faster just by taking a step back, walk away from it. Nobody's a machine, and in the grand scheme of things, it's a website, it's code, it's not gonna kill you. So, just take a step back for a second. You know, you never know if you stay so tunnel vision on this, sometimes you miss all the beautiful things going on around you. When you take a step back and you see how beautiful things are, then you know it's as easy as a simple fix. So
You mentioned that when you first designed your first website, you designed, you sent it to a guy and he told you, gave you some advice. Do you still have mentors, or just people that you talk to that can still kind of bounce ideas off of? If you,
I do. My immediate circle of friends is full of people who verbally abuse and batter me. You know what I mean? It's like my friend Eddie is like the I always say he's the biggest jerk I know, but at the same time it's the best thing for me, because I'll make something and think it's the greatest thing in the world and send it to him, and he'll go, oh, it's not bad. I've seen you do better. And then initially I'm like, why would you say that? You
Right.
know? But at the same time, if that's his opinion, that's great. It motivates me, because then it's like, well, I can make the next thing better. So I definitely keep people like that around me. I keep a lot of other programmers and developers who I'm cool with, because oddly enough, people who I think know more than me often don't know more than me in certain areas.
Right.
So I believe, I tell people, even today, you have all these adults who have degrees and things of that nature and don't know how to search for things on Google on their phone. You could learn a lot from a child. So you can learn from anybody. So for me, again, I try and say everything is relatable. I don't think that there's anybody who I can't learn something from, and I don't think that there's anybody who I would feel bad about teaching or informing them about anything I know. So
we go open up to the audience pretty soon. But what's the best thing working for the Cavs? What's the best thing you got from there?
now,
Now,
I mean, we won a championship.
I know,
so
but okay. Let's say like the first. Let's say before the championship, when you start. Let's say when you started working there. Like, what was the thing that kind of surprised you the most when you started working there?
how cool the people were. When I got there, everybody there is fairly young. Not everybody, but there's a large number of young people there. As we started to talk, you can kind of see that there's this camaraderie ship, I guess, that exists that I didn't expect. I guess I had a preconceived notion of what it would be like to work in a company, I guess, this size and doing this many things. But once you kind of get there, everybody's kind of on the same page, and you'll see that when I have a question or I'm lost, there's always somebody to step in and help. I really like that. And it's they send us on this training. You have to go to this training at some point when you join any company, and it's in Detroit, and it's like it's probably like 5,000 people, I guess, for this ISMS training is what they call it. And you find out that all these different companies that Dan Gilbert has his hands in all kind of go through the same training, and the training is it's to remind you that the company's only as good as you are, so be your best, so things like, if someone calls, answer the phone. If you can't be there to answer it, set a voicemail and tell the person who's next up that you're going to be out, so that if someone calls you, they have a fallback. I mean, it sounds like basic stuff, but it's true. A client only, if you have a project due and you can't meet the deadline, the client's not going to be happy about not having the deadline met, but they'll be much more inclined to work it out and be comfortable than if you just don't answer the phone or you don't call them back. It's the little things. They always say, in order to get somewhere, you might need to go that extra inch or go that extra yard or whatever. Well, to go that extra mile, miles are made of inches, and the inches you need are all around us. That's right. One of the things they'll say. So it becomes the little things that you do will make it a lot easier to get there. So an inch is little, you do little things, and at some point it all adds up, and now you've done that mile worth of stuff to get your company, to get your efforts to that next level. Just that kind of thinking and that kind of approach to things kind of really changes everything and gives you much better results.
So what's the next step for you? I mean, I know you still do graphics, you still paint, you know, you're saying you're heavy into tech. I mean, what's next? I mean, you're going to be with the cast for a while, I would think. So, I mean, what's next for you?
I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, to be honest with you, I've really bought into the belief that there was a time when I would have never in my wildest dreams told you that I would be where I am. That's not to say that I feel like I'm super balling, big money, grip, whatever, or that I'm at the top of any mountain. But I know when I look at where I am versus where I started, I would have never guessed that I got here. I would have never guessed that I've known the things that I know. I would have never been the one to tell you that, you know, being relaxed helped me see things better and helped me be a better programmer. That never would have crossed my mind. So that being the case, I don't think that I can tell you what my next steps will be. I can only tell you that I'm striving for whatever my next steps are to be greater than my last steps.
It's like you've been hanging out with LeBron.
I can't say that. I got a picture with him. But I can't say that, you know. But it's the patience, man. It really matters.
So what? I mean, what made you so patient? Was it like yoga or something? I mean, did your girl kind of say, "Listen, you need to relax"? I mean, what was it that made you all of a sudden just?
So let me tell you. Last year, I came in and I wrote this code. For this project they absolutely needed, and they couldn't get it done, and the season started. Well, since I was a new hire, I went, hey, yo, I can take a crack at that. And they go, you think you can do it? I'm like, yeah, why not? Well, you know, in trying to prove that, you know, I could get it done, and in my mind I knew I could do it, I bang it out in like 3 days, right? So it's working, it's perfect, everything's great, everybody's impressed. So we're going to go and launch and use it for the first time that Monday. That Monday came around and it didn't work. It needed to go live at 9:30. It's 9 o'clock. It's not working. I'm losing my mind. The guy, Brandon, who was the project manager, goes, dude, relax. It's going to be okay. I go, no, this is driving me crazy. I'm pecking at the computer trying to figure it out. It was a semicolon in the wrong place. I had like thousands of lines of code. One semicolon in the wrong place.
Oh, wow.
So I'm losing my mind here.
Yeah.
I finally get it working. It was about 9:35. I'm really mad at myself because I missed that 9:30 deadline. Brandon goes, dude, you need to relax. I go, what do you mean? He goes, look, this is digital. Things aren't always going to go perfectly. A couple minutes isn't going to kill anybody. And realistically speaking, you did a great thing. You'll find a mistake. Just don't stress yourself, you know? And from that point, you start to see that while you do have deadlines and things have to be done, most of the other stuff you don't have to beat yourself up about, you know. I mean, like I came back from lunch one day. I was a half hour late. I told my manager, I'm like, look, you know, lunch went over a little long. I'm sorry, you know. It just, you know, I would have called him or whatever. He goes, dude, no one cares. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, look, basketball games start at 7:30. You're going to end up making up the work. It's impossible. We all have to do these, you know, a lot of hours in order to make this work. So if, you know, you have to take a longer lunch here or you need to take time here, it's fine. It's really no big deal. And you start to see everybody's kind of on that, you know. You're not going to beat yourself up throughout the week because when the game starts, you're so zeroed in to making sure that the fans get the best experience that you're going to do that extra. You're going to get it right. You know, you're going to get it done. So, you know, it's just that patience. The patience is truly a virtue. Yeah. You know, I feel like a guru when I say it, but it's the truth. You see so much clearer.
So how long did it take you to find that with semicolon? Was it a semicolon then? Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to find
it? So the first 5 minutes, the first 15 minutes, I was driving myself crazy. And that's when he was like, dude, you need to calm down. Right. And at that point, I walked away from my computer and I'm like, okay, Ray, stop for a second. Right. What would make this not work? And at that point, it becomes more of an investigation of what is it doing? You know, I know what you want it to do, but what is it doing? When you look at what it's doing, you go, okay, where have you seen this before and what caused it to do that? So then you start to kind of look for signs of things that you've experienced or things that others have experienced, and it kind of leads you to what to look for. Once you find it, then it's, oh, yeah, and you fix it, and boom. So, 15 minutes to fix another, probably like 15 minutes to locate it. It probably took me another 10 minutes to compare it to an old piece of the code structure of it that I had before, because we had to change some calls.
Right.
And once I was able to kind of balance that out, test it again, test it a third time, and then push it live. Man. So, it took it took longer than I wanted it to, but
I think we all need a Brandon in our life to kind of.
Yeah, Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon's cool, dude.
He just hit me with that. He was like, because it was funny, because he was like, dude, you just need to calm down. I said, but I got to get to work. He goes, it's going to work. Just relax. And sure enough, when it works, he goes, I told you.
Yeah. You have a question?
Yeah. So I'm kind of trying to get into like freelancing for websites and stuff like that. How do you find clients when you're doing the freelancing stuff?
I started building websites. The first thing I did was I went and identified a place where I can buy my own web space, my own domain name, and I just started building right there, building my own stuff. I didn't really have a direction, so whatever it was that I did, I just focused on, Since I used to draw a lot, I found a way to kind of get my graphics up there, drawings I did, things of that nature. And as I did that, you start to build and you go, well, what if this? What if I want my website to do that? What if somebody wants this and that? So I started testing stuff. As I would test stuff, I was still putting in applications and things of that nature, but I just kept pushing it out there. I would talk to people. So, I would go on different places to kind of get assistance from other people on what it was I was doing and what their suggestions were. And slowly but surely, word of mouth started getting out, and I would get somebody who would say, hey, I see that you draw. I know you build a website, but I see you draw. Can you help me with a logo? Sure. Next thing you know, it becomes, oh, you write code, so can you help me with my website? Sure. Start, going from there. And the hardest part for me has always been, honestly, the charging of, how much to charge. I really always felt funny taking, this is going to sound funny. I always feel funny taking money from people, especially if it's something that for me is just comes second nature. To charge you for it, I understand I'm supposed to and I have to. But I'll see somebody like charging absorbent fees for something that for me, I wouldn't feel comfortable charging people. So I had to really come to grips with how to charge, how to be fair, and how to make sure that I treat my audience with the respect from all points, including, the charging as possible. Because then you start to get, people who will talk about you and they'll have faith in you. They'll talk about you from the perspective of, I really liked working with him. I really liked, he did this and that. And then they'll start, paying you with no problem, So I just think, you really have to just push your word of mouth. Now, the one thing I didn't do enough of coming up, which a lot of people suggested I should have done, is really market yourself. Really get your name out there. Really, get it out there that this is what you do, and really shine a light on the things that you create, the things you make, what you're good at. Because you never know who's out there looking for you. So that's the biggest thing to me.
Do you guys use any like the new JavaScript stuff, like Angular, React, or anything like that?
That's funny you brought that up. We've been toying with Node.js right now, using a lot of stuff that I'm still getting a handle on. We actually had a product that we started building in Node.js. Then the playoffs and the finals came, so we had trouble completing it. So we actually reached out for outside assistance, and this guy from I believe he's Ukrainian, jumped in and said, "You guys are on the right path, but I would have written this in Angular. Do you guys have a problem with that?" And project manager goes, "No, please do it." And this guy was a genius. 2 days later, the whole thing was structured, working well, and we were digging into that code, kind of getting an understanding of it. So yeah, we've been venturing out into more robust code programming and coding. But it's a little interesting because during the season, it's high paced. You know, I thought last year was high paced, and this year it was going. So but yeah, we definitely look at a lot of that stuff. We try and identify instances where using this stuff would be best, and then we just try it. Because right now, Dan Gilbert told all of our leaders, and all our leaders tell us, you got a green light, so try it. If it works and it's something we're not going to use, we won't use it. We're not going to force you to do certain things, but we're going to try and find a green light. If you make, they want your suggestions, then we kind of talk about those suggestions, and if that suggestion looks like a good idea, we go hard at it. Yeah. So.
Yes,
Earlier you were saying that there's a screen where, if you're tweeting using the hashtag, that all of the tweets pop up on, you can walk up and touch it, and it'll bring full screen. How much of that is monitored or how much is automated? For example, like, how do you deal with someone tweeting something with some sort of vulgarity to it? Can it be captured using a piece of software, or is there really someone behind the scenes kind of monitoring all that stuff in real time?
It's kind of actually, we deal with two. Last year we dealt with two products. One was Spread Fast, and one was I forget the name of this company, but basically both of them wanted to deliver that same kind of experience, and a lot of them provide things like file language filters. You can say I only want you to produce, or I only want you to publish things with pictures. I only want you to publish things with text. I only want you to publish from this or that. There's a large array of parameters that you get to control over all of the content that comes into all social media channels. So what we try and do is take those tools and really zero in on who our audience is, and tweak it to that experience. And then the other thing is a lot of trial and error. We'll have something running, and if something gets through that we didn't think of, we go in, tweak it out, test it, and go from there. And it is definitely an interesting experience to realize how much questionable content actually gets pushed through. I've seen some things I never thought I would see. And we jumped all over that stuff. Like I said I said it earlier, and it's not something I made up, but David Griffin came in and he told us last year, you're at the basketball center, you're in the center of the basketball world. He goes, you're not going to understand what that means until you actually understand what that means. And you will see, like, we get people who call us. I had someone call my phone, and I go, Cavaliers, this is Raymond Brown, and they proceeded to go on a rant about how LeBron James hasn't answered his mail that he mailed out, and I'm like, bruh, I'm digital. You're on the wrong line, But you get a lot of this stuff, and for us, prior to being there, it would be easy to just fire off and say something off the cuff or whatever, but you actually find yourself relishing the ability to handle that situation in a graceful manner that's not negative to him, and it actually quells the situation and calms it down. So, it's really just, you almost put yourself in that perspective. I mean, you may not be in the same mental position as that person on the phone or whatever the case, but at the same time, that person probably wants a particular level of respect. So you put yourself in that perspective, in that position, and imagine if you were the person calling, and then you try to find a way to, effectively get them to where they need to be in order to be comfortable.
So you mind if I follow up with
Go ahead.
a follow-up question? I want to do something similar to what you were saying about pulling in stuff based on a hashtag, but I want to do it, on a much smaller scale for my website. Do you have any software suggestions or anything that I could look at to kind of get the ball rolling?
The thing we're using now that I like is from a company called Spread Fast, SPRED Fast. I don't know what the financials are behind using their product, but I think that it might be a good place to start just to get a handle on and an idea of what functionalities and what capabilities they provide. And then from there, I would do research to see what other options there are, because especially now with open source CMSs out there, content management systems, you can find a lot of things that these companies are selling and doing big buck things with. You can find smaller alternatives that won't cost you anything, and then you can kind of implement that and tweak it to what it is you want to do, and then you're rolling,
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
How many people is in your department?
Somewhere around 20.
Okay.
You figure there's 4 programmers, me being one of those, but we kind of like on edge program and do a little graphics here and there. You got your your social SB3, which is our social team. You got 2 video guys, and Brandon, so that's 3. You got Joe G, who's the beat writer. There's a couple guys over here. Yes, that's about 20 of us.
So what is it like as far as a meeting goes? Do you kind of like meet every week, or it's like every couple weeks? How does it work?
Well, right now, so each individual group in that team has their own individual meetings. So social will meet, the programmers will meet, the video guys will meet. Then we have, social meetings where the social guys, the video guys, and the programmers are there. And then the programming team, last year we tried to move to an agile system. Now we're
What's an agile system?
Agile is kind of like the best way I can explain it is you get this pot of jobs. You establish how long it's going to take to complete each job. We give a point system to each job. This is a 4 because it's going to be so hard. This is a 2 because it's going to be a lot easier. We say something to the effect that we're going to do how important compared to everything else. So you pick and choose. And if I put it up there, I'm jumping ahead of somebody else. So the onus kind of falls on them to make it clear to this person that, look, I know your job's up before mine, but and then we have spikes that come out. Spikes are when you're working on a project and all of a sudden, hey, we need this right away.
Right.
Well, it doesn't fit into our 12-point system, but if we do it, then we got to push some things around. We took that perspective, and it didn't really hold too well because the system, the season goes way different than most companies that use that agile approach. So we use pieces and parts of the agile system to structure kind of our own approach to things.
And what's the off season like now? Like all the players are off doing their thing, but I mean, you guys are still working. So is it kind of like there's like a downtime, or are you guys cranking up for the new season already?
It's kind of a combination of both. You get a downtime because, like, for instance, we get off on Friday half day all the time. There's always some sort of event. Hey, we're feeding you a bunch of food. Hey, we're going to take you to this event, whatever. So we consider this to be wind down, but for us and for digital, it never really stops. So you spend the summer laying the groundwork and the foundation for what you're expecting to come. We spend a lot of time, like right now, developing strategies on how we're going to approach things, looking at what we went through last season and trying to prepare for when those same things come around, how we can make it easier so we can find more time to put efforts into cooler stuff.
And final question, you're a rare combination, and I don't know, because I know quite a few. I know you, Colin's a creative guy, so it's Colin works for Cleveland.com. He's a creative guy, funny guy. But so you guys are rare when it comes to programmers who are also creative. And most programmers I've seen aren't really that creative. They know how to program, but they don't have that illustration, visual side. Do you think it's important for programmers to kind of maybe get into social a little bit and kind of get out of that bubble, so it can't be because of the schools that you had already as an illustrator, it kind of opens yourself up to more duties with the Cavaliers. Do you think learning programming is great, but maybe you should have some other skills that you bring with you when it comes to a job? Or maybe it's just you. Maybe that's just
No.
how you just made up.
No, when I started, all the programmers, like when I was building that first website,
Yeah.
I used to go to the programmers and go, hey, I want to do this and this, show me how. And they would say, you can't do that. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because you can't do that in programming. And I was like, you're not going to tell me something can't be done. So that's what drove me to start learning programming, because I couldn't find a programmer to program what I was making. Once I started learning programming, initially I was learning programming the traditional way, and it was driving me crazy because it was so boring, you know. But then when you would use it for certain applications, when I would apply it to certain things I wanted to happen, and it would happen, I would get giddy and excited, you know. But then you start to look at it, and there's actually an art to programming. It's just like there's an art to playing the piano. You know, yeah, there's structure. There's art to shooting video. Yeah, you can press the button and do this, but if you really know composition, you know, how to position things, you start to see there's an art to it. And when you identify the art to everything you're doing, and you have done art in some other field, you start to kind of see where they align. Or it's no different than, so I was doing audio editing. Everything was based on tracks and sequencing and timing. Well, when I got into video, everything's based on tracks and sequencing and timing. When I did animated GIFs, track, sequencing, and timing, and you start to identify that there are parallels in everything. And I believe it goes beyond work. I believe it goes even in life. You know, it's no different than if you have a garden and you're planting fruits and vegetables. You're going to cultivate those things. Things you introduce to those plants are going to grow and change, mutate, or alter because you introduce those things. Well, if you have a child and you introduce certain things to them, they're going to grow and they're going to change and adjust because of that. I believe everything has a relation. Everything's relatable. And I believe that the artists who cross the line, the forbidden line of programming, and actually let themselves open up to it, you start to see the art on it, and then you start to make that parallel. And I don't think it's just art and programming. I think it's musicians and whatever, you know, it's people who do wiring and all that. You have to see, you know, when I look at a board of, you know, this a board for a computer, at first it just looks like a whole bunch of junk slapped on some plastic. But when you actually learn what each one does, then you start to realize, oh, they put this here to make room for this. Oh, so then there's an art to it, and there's a rhyme and a reason. There's a reason to that, you know. Once you start to kind of identify the art and the systematic approach that they took to make it work that way, then you kind of look at the art and the systematic approach you take to why you do whatever it is you do. And you just look at the parallels, and when you kind of open yourself up to accepting that, you kind of see that you can kind of shine in multiple places. Because there's people I know who can program way better than me. But when we sit in conversation, there are certain things that they don't even think about before they start programming. And I'll bring that stuff up, and they're like, oh, you know, and it changes them as a programmer. Right. And additionally, they'll tell me, well, this is what I do, and it changes me as an artist, you know. So I just think finding that relation is the best thing.
All right. Well, Raymond S. Brown the third.
Say the third every time.
I say the third every time. You gotta say the third. You know? Kevin Lockett the third doesn't sound right.
You gotta keep pushing. You gotta market yourself. Yeah, keep
As the
marketing.
third. Oh yeah, I'm the third.
I keep saying it. I'm telling
Thank you for the conversation. If people want to find out the cast, where do they go? And also your illustrations, where can they go to check out your illustrations?
So I'm gonna tell you, my website's usually just like now under construction because I'm testing for other people's stuff. But I'm always at my website is raydraws.com, RAYDRAWS.com, because people call me Ray and I can draw.
Oh, that's what it means? I thought you actually meant Ray's draws. Like, I thought you meant your underwear. I had no idea. I thought you was trying to be funny.
I ain't trying to show the world how fresh I am, you know. But you can always find me there. My email is info@raydraws.com. And I'm always Raymond Brown at the Cavaliers. They couldn't put the third on there because 3 eyes didn't work. But, you know, Cavs.com is always rolling. So
And have you ever talked to Dan Gilbert or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was at the training.
Yeah.
And there's a point at which he comes out and he's walking, he's talking, he's got headphones on,
Yeah.
and he went, and he stopped and looked at me, and he continues on. He goes, I just got to tell you, and I was like, something bad. And he goes, anybody ever told you look like anybody? I was like, oh, yeah. And he goes, you used to be the president of Players Association. And I was like, yeah. He's like, who? I was like, Derek Fisher. He goes, man, I swear to God, I looked over and went, what is Derek Fisher doing at my training? And I'm sitting there like, thanks a lot for making these 5,000 people laugh at me, you know. But it was cool, you know. So, but he remembers my name now. So.
Well, at least it wasn't Matt Barnes who thought you looked like Derek Fisher.
Well, yeah.
That'd be a whole.
I don't want to
different,
attack me.
You almost,
That's a whole nother story.
I like you, Matt Barnes. Don't beat me up.
Right.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for showing up. Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, no problem.
And tune again for another Code Akron Q&A.